Okay, here's the thing about these tunnels. When you go into them, half the time it just looks like some kind of basement type industrial steam pipes, whatever, you know. And a lot of these old buildings, like you talk about in LA and every big city, even Pasadena, whatever, take it any city that's like at least 100 years old, it's going to have this stuff. All the big buildings, like the police department, the courthouse, whatever, they're all going to be connected. A lot of this has to do with the old mafia stuff. You know, they'd be running humans. They say it was for prostitutes, that's code for human smuggling. It's the same exactly thing they do today. When they say it was for bootlegging, that's the same as saying it's for smuggling drugs. It's the same thing they do today. One of the big things I'm involved in right now is this big scam in California, from Sacramento up to Reno, which is gold country, El Dorado, Placer County, what have you. And there's some heavy, heavy, heavy stuff going on there, billion dollar stuff going on there right now. And again, this is mafia, Mason, uh, land speculation. But back to these tunnels. The old buildings are going to have brick. A lot of them nowadays, you go under in their basements, you're going to might see a bricked off door going somewhere. That's a tunnel. Uh, and trust me, these things go from hell all the way from the edge of LA all the way out to Riverside, the mountains, everything down to the coast, the entire everything you see, all that concrete, there's tunnels under all that stuff. And there's tunnels under the tunnels and tunnels under the tunnels and tunnels under those tunnels.
So they're still being built?
They're being constantly built. A lot of times when people talk about these big booms and little earthquakes in these strange places, that's a
Oh,
bunker being
snap.
built. Okay, that's a low yield nuclear bomb going off, usually four of them, and it'll make a big cavity. And what they'll do is they get in these cavities with these big earth moving. They'll come in there with these, you know, these tunnel boring machines. See, that's the thing. Everybody talks about tunnels. It's not the tunnels, it's the bunkers. Okay, these things are bunkers. Now, when you talk about tunnels, sure, tunnels are how you go between bunkers. And trust me, there's a lot of tunnels. You die just walking these tunnels. But the bunkers themselves are made out of tunnels because they'll use these nuclear explosions to create a big, huge cavity, you know, hundreds of feet wide,
Like
hundreds of feet tall,
they'll detonate it inside the earth?
underground. Yeah, they'll dig down,
Oh.
whatever, you know, a mile, whatever, and they'll do these nukes, usually four of them. They'll make a square, you know, and then they'll drop a nuke down each one of these things. It'll create this big, huge cavity. And then, but what they'll do is they'll get these tunnel boring machines inside these things. They'll build floors, and the big, huge cavity is going to be like a mezzanine kind of like thing or an atrium. You look at these hotels, they got a big, huge atrium. That's what that is. Okay, so then what they'll do is they'll have these tunnel boring machines radiate out from the center like spokes. Okay, like spokes on a wheel. And these things will be, you know, 200 feet wide, whatever, right? Big, huge tunnels. And it's within those spokes, those tunnels, that they create the living uh, places. Okay, you know, so your condo is going to be, you know, limited within that space. And then, of course, the transit. When people talk about tunnels, it's really, you know, transit's what you really think about. That's below everything. So when you're going down into one of these bunkers, you know, and he doesn't even really get into the bunker till you're at least a mile down, you know, and then you're going to have multiple floors of bunker. Okay, and each one of these floors is like a city unto itself because you think of a city as like a you know, we think it's two dimensional, but it's just the surface of the earth. I mean, it's relatively two dimensional. You know, we build skyscrapers and stuff. Imagine that as just one level of the bunker, and there'll be multiple stacks. So it's like cities on top of cities, basically. Anyway, when you get to the very bottom of that, well, not the very bottom, but when you get to almost the very bottom, that's when you get into the tubes. They're just going crisscrossing all over the different places. So you want to go to Catalina Island, you want to go to New York, you want to go to Australia, whatever, Hawaii, you jump on a tube. And then below that is where they have the really wicked stuff. Okay. The really wicked stuff. Like the, you know, the big I mean, there's wicked stuff all over the place. They're eating babies and sacrificing humans all over the place and doing really horrible things to people all over the place. But when you get to the very, very, very bottom, is when you get into the really hardcore, high level satanic ritual stuff. And this is where they're actually dealing with aliens. A lot of people think there's aliens all over the place. No, there's no aliens all over the place. And this is something that's really hard to explain to people because the aliens are, our level of reality is different from their level of reality. It's a higher level. They actually have to come down to us. And it's not a dimension, it's a density. So they use portals for this purpose. And portals are actually illegal in the cosmic God's law. God is very much against portals. And they use these portals to move around. So that's how they interact with us. And of course, we provide sustenance for these things, but it's not physical. Okay, they get physical food, they get blood and all that. Of course, these guys want our blood, but they also want our negative human emotional psychic energy, which is called loosh. So we put out this. It's like when the adrenaline, you get that adrenaline thing on. They talk about adrenochrome. Well, there's a mental component too, a spiritual component. It's like an energy, and you're in terror, and you're just you're putting that out, and that's what they're really harvesting. That's the stuff that these guys. 50% of the nutrition that these Draco consume is that.